From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar?
The insurance investigator that's working on the Byron Hayes killing?
That's right. Who's this?
I got a few things to say about the shooting. I can't say them to the police, but if you level with me, maybe I can say them to you.
All right. But I've got to be sure of you, too. Who are you, and how'd you find out about me?
One of the papers mentioned that you'd come to New York. I guess you've read about me, too. I'm what they call the chief suspect, object of a widespread search.
Roy Corona?
That's right. Now, do you want to talk to me?
Sure, Roy. Anytime you say.
I thought so. I'm going to give the phone to a friend that's with me. He'll tell you where to go and what to do so he can pick you up.
Edmund O'Brien in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian All Risk Insurance Company. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Byron Hayes Matter. Expense account item 1, $12, transportation from Hartford to New York. There wasn't much to be done that first day. The police had their theory on who had killed Hayes, and I hadn't had time to form mine. And then that evening, I received a phone call from a man who called himself Roy Corona, the basis of the police theory. 20 minutes later, according to instructions, I was standing on a 7th Avenue street corner holding a copy of Life magazine in front of my face so I'd be recognized.
Hey, you.
Yeah?
What's your name?
I'm your man, all right, Dollar.
Come on. How are you, Dollar?
All right.
You didn't do anything I told you not to on the phone, did you?
I told you I wouldn't do anything, didn't I?
A lot of people make a lot of promises they don't keep.
Maybe so.
Well, I guess all I can do is either trust you or drive fast enough and far enough to shake a tail if I don't trust you.
Or you can drop me if you don't want to go through with this. I didn't ask to come, you know.
That's right. And I don't think you should have been asked. But it's Roy's neck, not mine. I'll just pretend there's a tail on me so I won't get out of practice. Doorway next to the poultry store there.
Thanks for the ride.
It's on the ground floor, second door back. Tell Roy I'll sit out here for a minute and then park the car.
Sure.
Tell him I'll be in a little while.
Yeah. Roy?
Yeah. My friend stay outside?
Yeah, he said he was going to park the car.
I'm not so sure I did the right thing calling you, but I guess they couldn't make things worse by doing it.
I guess not, Roy. They want you real bad.
Sure they do, because I'm a natural. Once you've been in prison, you're a natural for anything.
There's more to it than that, isn't there?
According to the papers, yeah, but not really. I didn't kill this Hayes guy. I didn't even know him.
The police don't seem to think that's important. They figure that a guy who spends 2 years in a prison comes out to find his girl mixed up with a lot of men is going to get knocked off balance.
Yeah, I guess that part of it's true. It did hit me pretty hard, but not hard enough to make me kill anybody.
They think it did. Hayes was one of the men you lost your girl to, so they figure you wouldn't have to know him to kill him. That you were waiting outside her apartment when Hayes came out, you blasted him.
Sure, they got it all worked out. The only thing wrong with it is that it ain't true. They don't care about that, but I do.
If you can prove they're wrong, you got nothing to worry about, have you?
My proof that I was someplace else is a couple of ex-convicts like myself. Statements from guys like that are broken down before they even make them. Isn't that right?
I guess there could be better alibis. Why did you bring me here, Roy? Try out your alibi on me or to tell me who killed Byron Hayes?
I don't know who killed him. But it would help if you believed that the proof I was someplace else would stand up.
If you have something else to back it up, let's assume that I do believe it.
It's something the police won't find out. Rita was blackmailing Hayes.
How do you know that?
I heard him. Right after I came out, when I was having a bad time over Rita. I was in the hallway one night, and I saw him go into her apartment. I listened at the door, and I heard him talking about it.
That would make it pretty careless, wouldn't it?
Oh, it was him that was talking so I could hear. He told her he couldn't afford to pay her anymore, but it had to stop.
It wouldn't do you any good to make this up, Roy.
I know that. And if she was taking him, she must be taking the others. A cop wouldn't get the truth out of anybody, but you might be able to check it if they'll trust you.
All right. I'll look into it.
What about the police? You gonna tell them?
But I got it from you?
Yeah.
They'd either toss me into a cell or laugh me out of town if I did. Unless you'd like to stick around and back me up.
No, I don't think I will. I gave it to you, and by the time my friend gets you back to your hotel, I'll be out of here and hold up someplace else.
Sure, Roy. I thought you would. The only reason this tip from the number one suspect meant anything to me was that to date, no progress at all had been made. Rita Cobb, outside whose door Hayes had been killed, said she'd known him only casually, that he'd just dropped in. Nobody else could be found who knew about the association, and even the widow, Agnes Hayes, said she had never heard of Rita Cobb. After I was dropped at the hotel, I decided to try out the new lead on the widow first.
I've told the police everything I know, Mr. Dollar.
I'm afraid it wasn't very much, Mrs. Hayes, and I wondered if there might not be something you didn't tell them because you didn't want to.
What do you mean?
I'm not a policeman. There are no reporters around. Everything you say to me will be kept in confidence. Mrs. Hayes, didn't you really know that your husband was seeing Rita Cobb?
If I'd thought he was, do you think I wouldn't have done something about it?
You didn't suspect anything?
No. Even now, I don't think he was seeing her, as you put it.
Do you know why he would have dropped in to see her, as she said he did?
No. I knew nothing about it. Oh, please, Mr. Dollar, you must understand that this has been very difficult for me.
Yes, of course it has.
As far as I'm concerned, my husband always was a man above question. His friends, his business associates, everybody looked up to him. I looked up to him. And now you and the others asked me to believe that he knew this woman.
She said as much?
No, she was lying. There must be something else she's hiding. She's saying she knew Byron to hide something else. She didn't know him. She's lying.
We'll learn the truth, Mrs. Hayes. Someone told me that Rita Cobb was blackmailing your husband.
That's not true.
That he was heard saying he couldn't pay her anymore.
That's not true. Why should he pay her anything? He didn't know her.
All right, Mrs. Hayes. I only wanted to tell you what somebody said.
It's not true.
All right, Mrs. Hayes. I thought a little more of Roy Corona's lead after I got the widow's reaction. Nobody can deny so vehemently and not be doubted. I wondered how the beautiful blonde in the case would take the bait. Hello, Miss Cobb.
Hello.
I'd like to talk to you.
Why? I told you and the police everything I know.
That's what Mrs. Hayes told me just a little while ago. I think I'd better come in.
No. You have no right to do
I
this.
suppose not, but you have no right to hold back information from the police either.
I haven't held anything back.
I want to be sure of that. So far, the police and I have been working completely blind. Nobody has known anything. Hayes is shot to death right outside your apartment, and nobody has the faintest idea why.
Do you think I'm enjoying it? Do you think I like seeing my face plastered all over the papers, labeled the mystery woman? Don't you think I'd like to see this cleared up?
Would you like to see it come out that Hayes was more than a casual acquaintance of yours?
I met him once or twice, that's all. Why did you say that?
How many other casual acquaintances do you have?
I don't understand.
What about a man named Arnold Smith?
How did you find out about him?
That's not the point.
I refuse to have the names of my friends dragged into this. It wouldn't do any good. Wouldn't do anything but hurt them.
Arnold Smith is about the same kind of man Hayes was. Married, past middle age, good-sized bank account.
Don't drag him into this. Please.
How about your friend Earl Fisher? Married, past middle age, good-sized bank account.
What did you learn about him?
I've learned about 2 or 3 more of your men.
The police know?
Not yet.
You're going to tell them?
I may have to.
I wish you wouldn't. I didn't mention them because I didn't think there was any reason to. None of them had anything to do with Byron.
How did you know that?
Why, because none of them knew about him.
Because he was such a casual friend?
No. I lied about that. But not to hide anything from the police.
And why?
I don't know. I was afraid to tell about him.
I can see why. There are a lot of things that aren't being told about this. But it'll come out if everybody in town has to be dragged into it. Now think that over, Rita, in case you feel like coming clean. She didn't feel like saying any more to me anyway. It was about 10 p.m. when I left her. And my first stop was a phone booth a half block away from her apartment building. I dialed a number and got what I'd expected, a busy signal. It was nothing definite, but I would have staked my expense account total on the hunch that she was warning somebody. To bear me out, the phone was ringing in my hotel room when I got there. Johnny Dollar.
This is Earl Fisher, Mr. Dollar.
Earl Fisher?
Yes. You mentioned my name to Rita Cobb a short time ago.
Yeah?
I had a feeling I should have talked to someone before this.
That's right, you should have.
I hope you can understand, however, my feelings. I naturally didn't want my name to enter this public.
Naturally.
I have a great deal to consider. A family, reputation.
Yes, I understand, Mr. Fisher.
But I feel that I have to talk to you.
Did you tell Rita Cobb that you were going to?
Hardly, since she threatened me with dire consequences if I did.
All right, Mr. Fisher. Where can we get together?
I'd have to know that I could count on your confidence, at least temporarily.
I think you can count on that.
Could you meet me this evening?
Where?
Do you know Ricky's Club on Lexington near 80th?
I can find it.
Then shall I see you there in 30 minutes? The bartender will point me out to you.
I'll be there, Mr. Fisher. Thanks for calling. That was the first real result of the lead given to me by Roy Corona. The second was quick to follow. I would have made another bet that a warning by Rita Cobb had decided somebody else to correct the situation in another way. It happened when I left the lobby and called for a cab. Hey! The shots came from a car, double parked. First, I saw the pistol come out of the window. Then I dropped, and from a prone position, I heard the rest. And I remember lying there. I didn't wonder so much about who was shooting at me then. I wondered how many people in the city of Greater New York wanted to see me and my information out of the way.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. For another great crime-hunting drama, spend a half hour with CBS's Gangbusters every Saturday evening. On Gangbusters, sheriffs, police chiefs, and district attorneys from American cities and towns tell the story of their manhunts. Fine cast of top actors join them to reenact these real dramas of crime-busting in action. Gangbusters is heard every Saturday evening on most of these same CBS stations. Be listening this Saturday, won't you? And now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
I didn't want to talk to the police right then, but I didn't have a chance not to. A patrolman was on the scene almost before I could get up off the sidewalk. And 25 minutes later, I was in my room with the sergeant of detectives I'd met earlier in the case.
What's going on, Dollar? Who's out after you?
I think I was mistaken for somebody else.
Now, you know better than that. I've got witnesses that for 10 minutes a car was double parked in front of this hotel. And that time, 4 or 5 men came out of that lobby. But the minute you step out, they open fire. Now, that doesn't sound like a mistake, does it?
It still could be.
Are you holding out anything, Dollar?
I don't know who shot at me, if that's what you mean.
That's only part of what I mean. I don't want anybody killed working on one of my cases. Now, what have you dug up? If you don't give it to me, I'm going to put you under wraps for your own good.
Okay, Mayor.
Oh, then you do have something.
Well, I didn't think much of it at first. It was a lead on Rita Cobb.
What kind of a lead?
on what might really have gone on between her and Hayes.
Where'd it come from?
I took it to the widow first. She still denied knowing her husband was acquainted with the Cobb woman, but she may have realized that by admitting it, she'd be giving herself a motive.
That's not new.
No, but the possibility of blackmail is. And she could have known about that, too.
Blackmail? Where'd that come from?
I can't tell you, but I think it's worth something. I have a list of names. Men who might be on the same spot that Hayes was.
Got it written down?
Yeah, right here.
Where'd you get this, Dollar? Names, addresses, and occupations.
Sorry, I can't tell you that.
You're going to refuse to answer police questions?
Just that one. I'm not trying to hog your case, Sergeant Middleton, or trying to be hard to get along with. But you've got to understand. You must have given your word to an informer somewhere along the line.
All right, we'll let it pass for now.
Thanks. And I guess you understand, too, that you're probably holding the names of some potential suicides if you break this publicly right now.
What about a potential killer? Do these men know you're onto them?
I'm not sure how many. I tossed a couple of names at Rita, generalized the rest. Then one of them phoned me. When I was leaving the hotel, I was on my way to meet him.
He probably baited you out onto the sidewalk.
It could be. I couldn't tell where he was phoning from. Maybe right downstairs.
Which one was he?
This one, Earl Fisher. Married, family, fairly big gun on the stock exchange.
Motive enough to make a try on you?
No proof that he fired the shots, but I'd pick up Rita Cobb as a material witness or something. Somebody might think of putting her out of the way if they haven't already.
No, not if they know you have their names.
Well, I guess you're right.
But I'll pick her up anyway.
Let me get on the phone. Just try a check on Earl Fisher. I called the bar where Fisher said he'd meet me. The answer I got didn't do much to alibi him for the attempt on my life. The bartender told me that Fisher not only hadn't been there that night, but that he, the bartender, had never heard of him. While Sergeant Middleton went out to pick up Rita Cobb, I hopped a cab, went back to the Hayes address to try the widow again.
Is it absolutely necessary, Mr. Dollar? I'm so distraught.
I'm afraid it is necessary, Mrs. Hayes. A number of things have happened since I left you.
Very well. I hope you won't stay long.
I'll try not to.
Would you like to sit down?
Yes, I think we'd better.
All right. Come in here. I hope you'll forgive the appearance of the apartment. I haven't had the servant in.
Might have been better if you had, rather than staying here alone.
I couldn't face her. I don't know how I'll be able to face anybody ever. We've been not what you'd call prominent people, but certainly quite acceptable. Then to have Byron killed in that sordid place under these circumstances.
What circumstances, Mrs. Hayes?
That girl. No one will ever really believe that Byron didn't know her, no matter what the truth is.
I think you know what the truth is, but you've had reason to deny it. Now, what reason? What are you trying to save?
Save? What is there to save now?
I can't think of anything except what's left of your pride, Mrs. Hayes, if you'll excuse my saying so.
You're a cruel young man.
I don't like to be, but sometimes it's worse to be too kind. You've taken advantage of the police and me by holding back the truth for purely selfish reasons.
Mr. Dollar.
You're less interested in seeing your husband's death cleared up than you are in what your neighbors will think of you when the truth does come out. And it has come out.
Mr. Dollar.
And you're in danger of having to answer impeding the investigation of the death of your own husband. Now, what will your neighbors think of that?
Mr. Dollar, what are you saying? What do you mean?
Rita Cobb admitted to me that your husband was more than a casual friend.
She's lying.
Another acceptable husband admitted to me that she was blackmailing him. There are others. So it's only logical to assume that she was blackmailing your husband.
That's not true.
How do you know?
It can't be true.
The state will spend a year looking into Mr. Hayes' money transactions if they have to. And there's something else. I'm convinced that you knew about it. I was convinced by the way you reacted when I told you earlier tonight.
I'm so confused.
When I told the police how you acted, their first thought was that possibly you'd killed your husband.
Oh.
Your motive would be that you knew about Rita Cobb, so naturally you wouldn't want to admit it.
Oh, don't think that. They can't, my own husband, no matter what he did.
Police minds go that way when people don't cooperate with them.
I was wrong. I thought it didn't make any difference. I thought nothing did but Byron's death.
You knew about Miss Cobb, didn't you?
Miss Cobb. Yes, I knew about her.
Why didn't you tell us?
don't know.
And you knew about the blackmail.
Yes. Oh, I know why I didn't tell you. I've been trying to spare myself, as you said, but for far worse reasons. I'm responsible for Byron's death
How, Mrs. Hayes?
because I was a righteous wife. It wasn't enough that I found out about her and her blackmail, but I wasn't big enough to forgive him or even think calmly. If I had been, it would have ended. Then there would have been no reason to consent to blackmail.
You learned just recently, then.
Yes. I made him go to this woman. I made him go and tell her that he was through and that he was going to report her to the police. That's why he was killed. I sent him. And I was afraid to admit my responsibility.
He was killed night before last. You must have learned that day.
A man came here. He said Byron knew that woman. I didn't believe him. But when I faced Byron, then I knew.
This man, did he give you his name?
No.
What did he look like? Was he dark? Not quite as tall as I am?
Yes. Oh, please go. I've told you. I've told you. Now I want you to go.
I left and took with me one more piece of the puzzle that looked like it was ready to fall into place. The man I described to her was my original informant, Roy Corona.
Now, this is serious, Dollar. You shouldn't have met with Roy Corona without telling us about it.
I don't think your best squad car could have tailed the guy that drove me, Sergeant. After I met him, he moved someplace else, so it probably doesn't make any difference.
Then what do you think his game is?
The way I see it, he was in love with Rita Cobb. 2 years in prison, he comes out and finds her involved with these men. He did enough listening at doors to satisfy himself that she was blackmailing Hayes as far as I can go. He's hoping to frame her for it or whether talking.
Well, you shouldn't have met him when doors coming up. There.
What did you bring me down here for?
You're a witness, but it looks like you're...
What's downstairs?
Some fast explaining, Rita. And Hayes.
I told
For
you.
blackmailing Hayes.
I found that out.
It wasn't blackmail. I borrowed some money from Byron once in a while.
That isn't what Roy Corona told Mrs. Hayes.
Oh? I should have known. Well, I don't care what he told her.
Go through just what happened the other night again.
It's the same as before. Byron left, I heard some shots and ran out. Byron was lying there.
You ran right out and didn't see anybody.
That's right.
You're sure you didn't see anybody?
If I had, don't you think I'd say so?
You didn't see Roy Corona?
I wish I had. But I don't care what you've got on me. I'm not changing my story. I heard the shots, ran out, and Byron was lying there.
Have you seen a lawyer?
Is there a law against that?
Are you sure you didn't run out first, then hear the shots, and then see him lying there?
Are you asking me if I killed him?
If you didn't, who did?
I heard the shots, ran out, and he was lying there.
We've figured out a motive for you now. Byron's wife got after him, made him come down and tell you he was going to turn you in. Didn't he say that?
Turn me in? For what? Byron and I were good friends. He dropped in. So you prove that's what he said.
We've got pretty good proof that you were blackmailing 5 men at least.
Oh, I don't think you'll find anybody who'll say that's what it was.
Yeah. You had enough, Dollar.
Well, I've had enough.
I'm going to see her charged with murder tomorrow.
You've certainly got enough. That's the way things stood that night, and until my hotel room phone rang in the morning. Johnny Dollar.
Dollar, this is Roy Corona.
Yeah, what do you want?
I read in the morning paper they're charging Rita with murder.
That's right.
She didn't do it. I did.
What are you talking about? What's the matter with you?
Nothing's the matter with me. Only she didn't kill him, I did. I shouldn't have, but when I found out she was seeing him and she wouldn't see me, I went crazy. I saw him come out of her apartment and I killed him. I want you to come and get me.
Nobody has to come and get you, Roy. Nobody's interested in you. If you want to make a statement, look up Sergeant Middleton and make one.
I can't do it that way. Look, I'm where you first met me. Bring the sergeant and come out after me. And do it fast before I change my mind.
Hello? Hello? After working half the night, it bothered Sergeant Middleton even more than it did me. But it was something that we thought we should look into. About 45 minutes later, we were knocking on the door of the dingy room next to the poultry shop.
Who's that? Dollar?
That's right, Roy.
Well, you came too late. I told you I might change my mind. Well, I have.
Oh, come on, Roy. Don't be ridiculous.
No, I killed him. And if there's no chance of working out a life with Rita, you might just...
Look, Roy, everything is just...
Okay, Dollar, let him have it.
Roy Corona made a good try, as well he might have, since he went to Mrs. Hayes and started the whole thing. But his shots went wild, and the sergeant's mind did too. When we dragged him out, he was still telling the same story. He didn't stop trying to save her until he heard about the confession made by Rita Cobb after I'd left her, about her motive and about the murder gun that turned up in her apartment. Find enclosed his reaction to that.
I'm sorry. I started it. I wanted to get her away from these men. I thought I could scare her away from the things she was doing. That's why I went to Hayes' wife. I never thought it'd lead to this. And I'd take the rap for Rita if I could. I wanted to get her to come back to me. Now look.
Expense account item 2, $140 miscellaneous expenses in New York. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $180.80. Remarks? Earl Fisher, the man suspected of shooting at me, was brought in for questioning. Because there was no proof, he survived that. But I felt sorry for him. I saw his wife, and what lay ahead for him at her hands was obvious. He was a condemned man. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Jim Nusser, Lee Patrick, Gene Bates, Ed Begley, and Jack Moyles. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
It's faster, it's funnier, it's got new life and a brand new punch because Jan Murray is taken over. It's CBS's Saturday night musical quiz, Sing It Again, an hour of mirth, melody, and money that's heard on most of these same CBS stations. Yes, Jan Murray is your new host. Alan Dale, Judy Lynn, the Riddlers, and Ray Block are your music makers. And there are still loads and loads of cash for identifying the new Phantom voice. Be sure to hear the new Sing It Again, starring Jan Murray, tonight on CBS. Stay tuned now for Von Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these same stations. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Is this Mr. Dollar, the insurance investigator?
That's right.
My name is Mason, Carl Mason. I'm an adjuster from Sierra All Risk, a West Coast company.
Yeah?
I need some help. I flew east to meet the claim of a beneficiary, a $40,000 policy. Her name is Jackie Cleaver. Now that I'm here, I can't find her.
You mean she's missing?
I can't find her. I have an address, but it led me up a blind alley. I've got the authority to hire you if you're free.
We can talk about it.
Good. I had correspondence with her just last week. It's strange she should drop out of sight so suddenly.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Sierra All Risk Insurance Company, 5th and Hill Streets, Los Angeles, California. The following, like it or not, is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Jackie Cleaver Matter. Expense account item 1, $250, cab fare from my apartment to the Excelsior Hotel, Hartford, where I was directed to room 216 and Mr. Carl Mason.
I'm having drinks sent up. Or is this too early for you, Eastman?
Well, it's a little for me, thanks.
It's the first time I've been in this part of the country for 6 years. One thing you can say for it, it doesn't change, except for the weather. The West changes every day.
So I've heard.
I'm still growing up. I heard a lot of good things about you, Dollar.
Oh? That's something new.
When I ran into this stone wall looking for this Jackie Cleaver, I called a few of the companies around here. They all suggested you.
Probably to keep me out of their hair. What's the background on this thing?
I've got it all here. Policies in the name of Schumacher, Howard Schumacher. He was killed in a traffic accident out there. Lots of them, you know. Here, see? Her address was listed as 382 Gardner Street in Manchester. That's just a few miles east of here.
I know the place. What'd you learn there?
It's a queer sort of a place. A man running around in trousers and a set of long underwear. I got the idea that he was lying to me.
What did he say?
That she hadn't lived there in 2 months. Now, how could that be when I've had correspondence with this Cleaver woman in the past 2 weeks?
The mail could have been forwarded to someplace else from the Manchester post office. What was the return address on her letters to you?
I didn't notice. I think she would have mentioned any change, but she didn't. This man, Forsland was his name, said she moved to a place called Middletown, but he didn't have an address. I went over there, but it's too big a place for an untrained man like me.
Let me see that. This says she's Schumacher's wife.
Ex-wife, I believe. Will you take it over for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a crack at it, anyway.
Good. You can take these forms with you. This is the one we want signed. And here's one of my business cards. I'll jot the phone and room number down for you.
Thanks. I'll let you know what I find out. Expense account item 2, $35, car rental and mileage. It was 3 o'clock when I left the Excelsior Hotel, but I figured there was enough left of the afternoon to make the short trip to Manchester and back. Jackie Cleaver's address there was a big frame house set back from the street at the edge of town. A sign that stuck out from a snowdrift called it a convalescent home.
Yes,
You Mr. Forsland?
I am.
Well, my name is Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator.
Are you the same as that other one?
I'd like to talk to you about the same woman.
Well, you better come in. We've got to close the door one way or t'other.
Thanks.
Yeah. Might find it too warm in here. Got to keep it that way for my patients. Now, what's the matter with that Cleaver woman?
Nothing that I know of. Man left her $40,000. I'm trying to find her so she can get it.
$40,000? Wouldn't take you long to find me, I can tell you that.
Are you sure she didn't say anything about where she was going when she left here?
Well, she just picked up and packed one morning saying she'd write, which she never did.
She give any reason?
Said she needed a change.
Was she an invalid?
Not so as you can notice. Came here for a rest, she said. She was well enough to go clean into Hartford to a bank when a check came twice a month.
Did she have any friends I could look up? Anyone come to see her?
Nobody, I'd say. She was a lonely woman. Wouldn't talk about herself.
Did you happen to notice where her mail came from?
Wasn't any except for checks. They came from California, Los Angeles.
Uh-huh. Well, I won't take up any more of your time, Mr. Forsland. Thanks a lot.
Not so much good, I can tell you.
Oh, what does she look like? I've never seen her.
Oh, 40-ish, I'd say. Well turned out for that age. Add a bit of color to her hair, I expect. That was brown. Sharpest features and knowing eyes. Saw a lot of life in her time, I'd say. She was strange. Not peculiar, you understand, just strange.
I caught the Manchester post office before it closed, and a cooperative clerk there gave me her forwarding address in Middletown. It's about 15 miles south of Hartford, and I drove down there after dinner that same night. It wasn't quite the setting you'd expect for a divorcee who received checks from California twice a month, and who was in line for $40,000. It was a ratty little hotel on the darker end of town. There was one man in the lobby and one woman behind the desk.
Oh, good evening, mister. What'll it be?
I understand you have a Mrs. Jackie Cleaver staying here.
Jackie Cleaver. You kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. Is she in?
She don't stay here anymore.
You know where she went?
It's hard to tell about Jackie. What do you want with her, honey?
An insurance company wants to find her. Somebody left her $40,000 on a policy.
Are you kidding?
She was married to a man named Schumacher in California.
Jackie was married?
And divorced. But she stayed on as beneficiary.
She never said anything about that marriage, but there's plenty of her that doesn't come out.
You sound like you know her pretty well.
Not as well as some, I guess.
When did she leave here?
Oh, 2 or 3 weeks ago, anyway. I can look it up.
More important, do you know where she went?
No, not exactly. She said something about New Haven. You might try the Bridgeport house.
All right, I will.
Imagine her married. That must be why she got those checks from out west.
They came here, too?
Yeah, alimony. Well, that's Jackie. I hope you find her, mister.
Thanks, so do I.
Hey,
Yeah?
I'll walk out with you.
All right.
What's this about, Jackie?
You must have heard all of it if you heard any. Are you a friend of hers?
Yeah. Yeah, who was this Schumacher you say she was married to?
I don't know. What's all the mystery about her?
Oh, there's no mystery. She's restless, likes to move around.
Beneficiaries get paid off every day. Everything about this thing is normal but her. Why is she so hard to find?
Oh, maybe she don't want to get found by every Tom, Dick, and Harry passing through.
It's none of my business. I'm being paid to get her signature on a form, then she gets her money.
Are you from the West Coast?
No, I'm from Hartford.
Well, maybe I could locate her for you. What then?
I'll give you my card. You can phone me at my apartment.
Dollar, huh? All right, Dollar, I'll see what I can do.
Excelsior Hotel, good evening.
Mr. Carl Mason, please, is in room 216.
Just a moment, please.
Yes?
This is Dollar, Mr. Mason.
Oh, what luck have you had?
I'm not sure yet. Just got home from Middletown. I met a man down there who thought he knew where she was. Hey, what do you know about her?
Well, nothing at all. Why?
Well, it looks to me like she's on the run from something.
You know, I thought there was something funny about that place in Manchester. What else have you run into?
Well, it's just obvious that she wants to stay out of sight, that's all.
Well, we don't care about that. We just want to get our books cleared.
Yeah. I gotta hang up now.
Well, I'll be here if anything comes up.
All right. Bye, Mason.
This is him, Bert.
Get back inside, Dollar.
Well, it didn't take you long to get here, did it?
Stay away from the telephone. Sit down over here.
What's the automatic for?
To show you how serious we are about this.
About what?
You were talking to somebody named Mason. What's the rest of it?
Look, I'm not used to being pushed around in my own apartment. Don't push too hard or I might make you use that gun.
Calm down. Was it Carl Mason?
What if it was?
Where is he?
Go find him.
I don't want to beat it out of you if I don't have to.
Hey, Bert, never mind. Here it is. It's a card by the telephone.
Give me that.
Hey, get off, you.
Drop it, Dollar. Drop it. All right, come here.
I'll give you a chance to try that again, I promise you.
Come on, Dollar, get up. Happy, go get a dish towel or something to stop his head bleeding.
I don't owe it to him.
Come on, get up. Now, how much trouble are you going to give us?
How much do you want?
What do you know about all this?
Oh, what?
I want to know how much Mason told you.
About what?
About Jackie. Don't play it smart with me.
I couldn't if I wanted to. He didn't tell me anything.
Did he come alone?
Mason, how the devil should I know how he came?
Here, here's your towel, Dollar. You're wrecking your suit.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sure.
You got a license in this state, so I'm going to take a chance on you.
What does that mean?
I want you to stop looking for Jackie. There's going to be trouble anyhow. But if you don't stop, there's going to be more. Let me see that card, Happy.
Yeah, that was handy, wasn't it?
The Excelsior.
Hey, what about Dollar?
I don't know. Be tough taking him with us. The way he looks, somebody'd notice him.
You want me to go down?
I better go, I guess. You stay here with him. Keep him away from that phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good luck, Bert.
Thanks. Give me 25 minutes, and you can get out of here. See you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
What's it all about, Happy?
Well, now, this thing is too big for the both of us, as they say. Now, don't talk, Dollar. Just pretend you're here alone and your phone is out of order.
I thought I knew what to expect at the hotel after the one called Happy had left, and I was able to get down there. But I was only half right. Excuse me, could I get through, please?
Hey, mister, you can't go in there.
Here's my ID. I was working for Mason.
Oh, I'm the house detective. Come on.
Where is he?
In the bathroom. I closed the door.
He'd evidently been blasted into the bathroom by the shock of a heavy caliber gun that had taken him in the middle of the abdomen and the chest. But it wasn't Carl Mason. It was the gunman who'd come to kill him. The one called Bert.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. You can sing it again for an hour tonight on most of these same CBS stations. And while you're enjoying this merry, tuneful hour with Jan Murray and the gang, maybe you'll get a phone call and a chance to solve the Phantom Voice mystery. The cash jackpot is the highest it's been in weeks. Be listening for Sing It Again this evening on CBS. And now with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Except for one unfortunate coincidence, I probably would have been able to drop the whole matter right there. And I would have, gladly. But it turned out that the lieutenant assigned the case was an acquaintance of mine. He had once informed me that a friend of his was on the state board from which I got my license, and he had never let me forget it.
Now, John, you tell me this fellow Mace hired you?
Name's Mason, Schiller. Carl Mason.
Oh, I jotted it down with a dull pencil. It's hard to read. Yeah. Mason. He hired you to get the signature of this Cleaver woman. Now, who is she?
I wish I knew. I wasn't able to find her.
Well, now, who did this Mason say she was?
It's pretty obvious he fed me a pack of lies. Looks like he hired me to put the finger on her.
Oh, why would he do that?
I don't know, Schiller. If I'd known, I wouldn't be here.
Now, you ought to be more careful who you hire out to, John. Now, let's see. You say that a second man named Happy held you in your apartment at gunpoint while the other one, the deceased, became this hotel room. Is that true?
Of course it's true. If you were any kind of a policeman, things like that wouldn't happen to honest taxpayers.
You haven't been in trouble in Hartford for quite a while, have you, John?
Not this kind.
I'm surprised you didn't try to notify the police prior to the shooting.
I did. Look at my head. And now you're asking me to risk infection just so you can write a lot of illegible nonsense in that notebook of yours.
Now, John, let's start over in a better mood. force has always cooperated with you. At least I have. You ought to be more thankful.
All right, Sheila. But please, put away the pencil and let me tell you what I know. Mason evidently came from the West Coast to find the Cleaver woman.
Why the West Coast?
Well, he had forms and a business card from a Western insurance company. She had been receiving mail from California. The guy called Happy mentioned the West Coast. Now, how would that add up? Florida?
Yeah. Go ahead.
He's your man, Sheila. And he's going to be halfway back to the West Coast unless you remember your training and get some men to cover the airlines and railroads and get some roadblocks out.
Yeah, I was planning to.
You want anything more from me?
You can't just drop this thing, John. How would that look in my report?
What do you want me to do, Sheila?
Find that woman. No use my wasting men when you've already started on it.
Expense account item 3, $10 to the hotel doctor who stitched and bandaged my head. Item 4, $1.30 night letter to a West Coast detective agency asking for a rundown on both Carl Mason and Jackie Cleaver. Then at about 11, I started back to the hotel in Middletown.
Must have dropped off. Oh, it's you again.
Yeah. Where is everybody?
Who?
The guy who was in the lobby the last time I was here.
Place is all yours. Hasn't been a soul in since you left, I don't think.
Does he live here?
I'm not so sure I know just which one you mean.
I think you do. They call him Happy, which he isn't going to be when I find him.
I don't think I know him. What's the matter, honey?
Enough to make it smart for you to level with me, honey. The police aren't far behind me.
What do you want?
I want Happy. Does he live here?
No. He just hangs around once in a while. Got a girlfriend lives here.
Yeah? Where is she?
She's not home. She's sick in the hospital.
Which one?
The county hospital.
What's her name?
Nadine Williams. What's the matter with Happy?
He and another guy named Bert something teamed up to get rid of somebody, but it backfired. Bert was killed.
Oh.
What is there about Jackie Cleaver that could cause this trouble?
I don't know anything about it.
If you're holding things back from me, I can have the police drag you in.
I don't know what it's all about with Jackie. But I can tell you a few places where you might find Happy.
What's his real name?
Snell Chandler.
He was going to meet Bert tonight. Do you know where?
A couple of places. One's the Wigwam. That's a roadhouse on the highway south of here. The other's further. Tower in New London.
All right, I'll check him. If he happens to come in here again, tell him what happened. And tell him he can do himself some good by talking to me before the police get to him.
I don't think he'll come back here, not with trouble like this.
He probably doesn't know about it yet.
Oh, hadn't thought of that. All right, if I see him, I'll tell him what you said.
Say, I don't have the brand you ordered, but I got some others.
It's all right. Just any kind of dark rum.
This okay?
Sure.
Get a big call for rum when it's as cold as this. Try that.
That's fine. Say, has Happy Chandler been in tonight?
Happy who?
Not the famous one.
Oh, I thought you were pulling my leg. No, nobody with that name comes in here. We got a pretty steady set of customers here. Oh, once in a while, somebody driving by drops in. Maybe you got your signals mixed.
That could be.
The only reason another wigwam around here that I know of.
Somebody told me he comes in here.
Not that I know of. How about another one?
No, thanks. What do I owe you?
50 cents.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry you got mixed up.
Dollar. Over here.
It's a lot warmer inside, isn't it, Happy?
No, I just got here. Look, May at the hotel gave you a bum stare, see? Don't be too rough on her. She has to play along with us, so she couldn't stay in business.
You're here. That's all I care about.
She phoned and told me what happened, so I came over here to talk it over with you. Bert didn't meet me, so I guess it's straight about him, huh?
You'll read about
Did Mason get away?
Temporarily. But I don't think he'll get out of the area. Police have it covered.
Well, I wish him luck. You told me I could do myself some good if I talked to you before the police picked me up.
That's the way I see it. You're in a bad spot. But if you play ball with me, I'll do the same for you.
Keep coming.
I didn't know who you were when you and Bert conspired for a killing. That's a rap. I might save you. The police don't have your name yet, or your description, or the name of the hotel in Middletown.
What do you want?
The Cleaver woman. She's the middle of this mess.
She's clean. She didn't do anything.
She must have to bring Mason all the way from the West Coast after her. Bert died trying to stop him. She must have done something to rate all that action.
I mean, as far as tonight goes, she's out of the picture. She doesn't even know what happened. What would you do with her?
The police want to talk to her. If she's clean, as you say, she shouldn't mind that.
Oh, I don't think she would.
You what?
What's the matter? Don't you believe me? She wouldn't. She's got no reason to be afraid of the police.
Well, it's holding us up then.
Well, it's too late tonight. Look, I got to make a couple of calls. You'll be in your apartment tomorrow morning. I'll phone you about 10.
Okay, Happy. I'd call myself stupid, except you showed up here tonight and you didn't have to.
You'll hear from me. I'll call at 10.
The first thing I got the next morning was the information I'd wired for. Carl Mason was a disbarred lawyer who had linked himself with a syndicate that until recently had controlled the wire service, etc., of 4 western states. The machine had been destroyed by the Supreme Court testimony of a state's witness. The rundown on Jackie Cleaver filled out the rest. She had been the witness. Johnny Dollar.
Dollar, Miss Mason.
Who?
Carl Mason.
Oh, well.
I want to give myself up, Dollar, but I want you to take me in.
Why?
I've read the papers this morning. Since you were held by these gunmen, you'll be important to my plea.
What plea is that?
I can build the tightest case on self-defense Connecticut has ever seen, and you know it. You know that man was on his way to kill me.
Yeah?
But you were wrong about my motives for coming here. I didn't intend to do Miss Cleaver any harm.
I think you've made a good choice. It'd be tough to prove what your motives were.
I want your statement as part of the formal arrest. Where can I meet you and when?
Be better for me later in the day, maybe right afternoon. You all right where you are?
Yes, I think so.
It's a good thing you didn't try to leave town. They got everything covered.
I thought they would have. All right, Dollar. I'll wait where I am and call back at 12:30.
I'll be here. Goodbye. Hello?
Hey, your phone's been busy.
Oh, is this Happy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Somebody had a job for me. What's happening with you?
Jackie's with me. What's the name of the cop in charge of Bert's killing?
Lieutenant Schiller.
Schiller. Schiller, is he a precinct man or from downtown?
Downtown.
You have him in his office at 11. Jackie will meet you there.
I'll meet her at the desk out front.
All right. I'll have her there.
And he did. I recognized her from the description as she walked through the door. Dark, nicely featured, and wearing conservative clothes. She held out a gloved hand when I told her who I was.
Well, Mr. Dollar, I didn't have any idea I was causing everyone so much trouble.
Well, you are hard to locate.
I've had to be. Where's the lieutenant?
This way. Lieutenant Schiller, this is Miss Jackie Cleaver.
Well, sit down, Miss Cleaver.
Thanks, Lieutenant. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, we've had ourselves a little trouble, haven't we?
I'm afraid so. I'm sorry, Lieutenant.
Oh, I don't blame you entirely. From what Dollar tells me, you're to be commended for testifying for the state out there.
I didn't know the secret was out, Mr. Dollar. Part of the agreement was to keep it.
I wired for some information on you.
What did you find out?
Only that your testimony put the syndicate out of business.
When you hear the rest, I know you won't talk about it outside this office. They've been very nice to me in payment for what I did for them. They understood, of course, that it wasn't safe for me out there, so they saw that I got here and have been sending a small amount of money twice a month.
It's not quite the accepted thing, is it?
My money is sent to a lawyer in Los Angeles who sends it on to me.
Well, I suppose they have their reasons, Dollar. That's none of our business.
I take it the syndicate learned where you were, huh?
You can't hide from those people. I don't know how they found me, but they did a few months ago. I've had to stay on the move ever since. I suppose not knowing that, you must have thought I was an arch criminal myself.
I was curious.
My friends here have done everything they could to help me. Poor Bert. I don't think he went to kill this Mason.
Why not?
Well, I think he went to frighten him away. Is there any news about Mason?
We'll haul him in. Don't you worry about that. He's ready to give himself up. It told Dollar this morning.
Oh. Well, I hope you get him. Maybe that'll put an end to it. Do you need me anymore, Lieutenant?
Well, I don't think so. Do you, Dollar?
I guess not.
Well, I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused.
Well, now that we understand it, it's perfectly all right.
Mr. Dollar.
Thanks for coming in. I'm glad I finally met you. The second surrender, that of Mason, should have finished the whole thing, but it didn't. I waited for his call at my apartment. When it came, I met him, per instruction, in a drugstore a few blocks away. I made one mistake. I answered the only question he asked me.
Have you found Jackie Cleaver?
Yeah, I talked with her.
And I'll tell you what she said. The court thinks she's a brave, courageous woman. Arrangements have been made so that she gets paid for her service to it.
That's right.
Well, I'll put the lie to that.
What's the matter with it?
Well, she testified all right. She knocked our syndicate out so the one she was mixed up with could move in. What do you think of that?
Is it true?
Of course it's true. That prosecutor thought he was using her, but she was using him. With the situation the way it is, she could perjure herself again to some federal investigators and make it look as though there was collusion between the state and the syndicate that moved in. Not true, but she could cause some heads to fall.
Glad I live in Connecticut.
Don't be stuffy.
Ready to go?
You're right, I'm ready. I don't care what the charges against me are, as long as I can get the truth about that character on record.
My car's outside. Down this way.
Don't forget, you heard those men say they were going to kill me. I want the arresting. Wait.
Yeah, that's the other one. Happy, what do you want?
Get out of the way, Dollar.
I've lived up to my part of the bargain. Come on. Let's play it out the right way.
Get out of the way.
Wait a minute, you.
Happy, get out of here.
No!
It should have ended when Mason gave himself up, but it didn't. Snell, Happy Chandler, was apprehended, but the search was on again for Jackie Cleaver. I wish them luck. They can have the job. Expense account item 5, $45.75 miscellaneous. Expense account total, $280. Remarks? Since Mason actually had nothing to do with the Sierra All Risk Insurance Company, I hardly expect you to honor this account. But you should. It should be worth that to learn what goes on behind your back. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Ed Begley, Dick Ryan, Mary Lansing, Sidney Miller, Tim Graham, Virginia Gregg, Hy Averback, and Jim Nusser. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Coverly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien will return as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. If you've ever tried to read a book in a bad light, you know the irritation that can be caused by tired eyes, by a sick, nagging headache. This same irritation may be causing your boy or girl to lose valuable study hours in school. Bad lighting may be dragging down their grades. Your community school is your responsibility. Do all you can to keep its classrooms well-lighted, modern in every respect. Remember, better schools mean better students, better citizens tomorrow. Now stay tuned for the Von Monroe Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these same CBS stations.
Wanted by your American Red Cross immediately, 4,000 emergency blood donors. The recent influenza epidemic severely curtailed the shipment of life-giving blood to wounded GIs. This blood is needed urgently. Become a Red Cross blood donor now. Call your local Red Cross office at once for an appointment. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Mrs. French speaking. Who is this?
Oh, I'm sorry for my explosive greeting, Mrs. French. It's a habit I've gotten into. This is Mr. Dollar from the insurance company.
Oh, yes, I received the message that you'd called. But I don't think I understand you're coming to Chicago.
Well, I guess they haven't got around to writing you about it. They sent me here to talk to you about your son.
I see.
And then if we decide there are grounds for your fears about him, they've given me authority to go out to the Malay states and investigate the situation.
Oh, that's very nice of them. I am afraid for Edward.
I'll come out to see you about 1:30 then, Mrs. French.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office Tri-State Insurance Group, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Edward French matter. Expense account item 1, $95 airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Chicago, the home of Edward French's mother. There the story went about as follows. Edward French had left the States after the war and gone to the Malay States, where he managed a tea plantation, concentrating on sales to a buyer for the Jewel Tea Company. He'd married an English girl, and their life seemed pleasant enough, but a letter from a Constable Wicklow had reported the abrupt end of that. Edward, on a business trip to Singapore, had disappeared. The current crop of Malay guerrillas was suspected, but there was not one clue as to whether he was alive or dead. Expense account item 3, $1,283 airfare to Singapore. It was almost a week later that I jostled my way through the crowded streets to the office of the Jewel tea buyer, Mr. Neeps.
You know, it's odd, Mr. Dollar. You won't believe this, but I was thinking of Ed just as you walked through that door.
You knew about the disappearance?
Oh, yes. Constable from Raub sent word down a week after he'd been here.
Oh, Mr. French did come here after he left his plantation.
Yes, we finished our business in the afternoon and went to dinner at the club that night. He left the following morning.
Did you hear from him the following morning?
Well, no, but I knew that was his plan. Actually, I wasn't worried about him even after I heard about it. Ed's, not peculiar, I guess, but strong-willed. If 50 men told him not to swim across a river, he'd do it just to please himself. You get to expect the unexpected from him. I don't know if I make myself clear.
I think I understand.
Selfish, maybe a better word. What I mean is that it would be like Ed to suddenly leave for some place without bothering to tell anyone.
Not even his wife?
Well, first of all, not his wife. Now, don't misunderstand. I like Ed, but I can't help disapproving of some of the things, like the way he treats Catherine. But none of my business. I like him in spite of those things. I think Ed will show up when he gets ready to and laugh at the trouble he's caused.
You don't put any stock in the idea that the guerrillas might have got him, huh? Bandits, I understand you call them?
Yes. Well, of course, there's always that possibility. A planter is killed now and then, but I'd expect Ed to be the last one.
If he just took off someplace as you suspect, would you have an idea where he'd go?
No, I'm afraid I wouldn't. It's a big world, you know.
Yeah. How do I get to Raub? I began to appreciate the state of siege British Malaya is living under when I boarded the train the next morning. All the windows in all the cars were covered with wood, hard and thick enough to withstand fair-sized bullets. At the stopping point near Raub, I was met by 2 native policemen armed with Bren guns who drove me the rest of the way in a jeep that had been encased in armor. There was no trouble, but by the time I reached the police station in Raoub, I had a healthy respect for the dank wall of jungle that pushed in from all sides and the unseen enemy it hid. Because on the way, I was notified by the native driver that Constable Wicklow had been killed from ambush the day before. His replacement was Constable Downs.
It's a nasty business, cleaning them out. Poor Wicklow'd been at it for almost a year.
Well, it must have happened after I talked to the police in Singapore.
Yes, last night. They attacked the Stewart estate. That adjoins French's. Wicklow was killed on the way out with reinforcements. They'll single out the leader every chance they get.
What do you know about French's disappearance?
Very little, I'm afraid. I read Wicklow's report when I learned you were coming. Undoubtedly the work of the bandits, although it might appear to be kidnapping.
Kidnapping? That's a new theory.
Oh, hardly a theory yet. But it's not been their habit to conceal the bodies of their victims. This is the first case on record where a vehicle has been taken.
I didn't know about that either.
That's what Wicklow's report said. That's all I know about it.
Constable, I want to go out and talk with his wife. How do you...
Take the Jeep by all means. It's rather late in the afternoon to start out. If you can't be sure of getting back here before dark, well, there's hardly any possibility that you'll take a chance. The native boys simply won't start back. They'll stay behind the barricade there for the night, and so will you.
The French estate, like the others, maintained about 50 private soldiers who held defensive positions about the place 24 hours a day. By the time I got there, they had pulled in for the night and were manning a tight perimeter around the main house. As the Jeep passed through it, I saw that they were fairly well armed with rifles, light automatic weapons, and grenades. In sight of all this, waiting on the veranda, and dressed as though she were about to leave for a cocktail party, Mrs. French looked entirely out of place. Mrs. French?
Yes?
Oh, didn't Constable Downs telephone about my coming? He said he would.
Constable Downs? I'm afraid he wasn't able to. Our telephone wires have been out.
Oh. Well, my name is Dollar, Mrs. French.
How do you do?
I'm here from the States to investigate the disappearance of your husband.
The United States? I don't understand.
I was sent by the insurance company that carries the policy on his life. It's quite a big policy, you know.
Yes. Please sit down.
Thank you.
Mr. Dollar, you must understand what our fears are. That Edward has been killed by the bandits.
There's no proof of that yet. As a matter of fact, Constable Downs seems to think there's a fair possibility that he hasn't been.
What did he say?
That they never bother to hide anyone they've killed, and your husband's body hasn't been found. Also, that they never steal cars, and your husband's car hasn't been found.
I haven't dared to hope. What does he think it means?
I don't think he's sure, but he mentioned kidnapping. I didn't know until I talked to him that your husband had been in his car when he disappeared. Does that mean that he drove to Singapore?
Yes, he always drove.
Through more than 200 miles of jungle during an emergency like this? Why would he do that?
Because everybody told him that he shouldn't. My husband was like that.
You're convinced that he's dead, aren't you?
Well, I haven't dared to hope. I've thought the worst so that it...
Mrs. French.
Where did it come from?
It's hard to tell. That way, I thought. You'd better sit down, Mrs. French. Come on. Come on, sit down. About 15 minutes later, I thought I understood her violent reaction to the shots in the far distance. A small lorry pulled up in front of the house, and a blond man of 30 or so years got out of it. He was introduced to me as Keith Stewart, manager of the adjoining estate. From one brief look that passed between Mrs. French and him, I thought I understood who she had been afraid for.
Well, I dare say that nobody would travel all the way out here if I caught it. You Americans are a surprising lot.
Yes, I suppose so.
And by the way, I very nearly did catch it.
We heard the shooting.
How many were there, Keith?
Hard to tell. As usual, I could scarcely see the beggars. But their number's not as important as the fact that they're still in the vicinity after last night. I'm afraid we shall have to expect another raid tonight.
The telephone lines have been cut.
Yes, I rather thought they had. I tried to call. That's why I popped over. I think we can expect them here tonight. Is that your Jeep, Mr. Dollar?
Constable Downs let me use it.
I wouldn't try to return to Raoub until morning if I were you.
2 hours later, it was dark. A double guard had been posted, and floodlights glared out in a 200-yard circle around the house. There was a rather strange supper shared by Mrs. French, Keith Stewart, and myself. The association between the two was obvious to me by the time coffee was served, and the rest of it came out later that night. I couldn't sleep in the uneasy house, and at 11 I left my room to go get some air on the veranda. But they were already there. And what I overheard from inside the house just about settled the case as far as I was concerned. I was waiting for a definite statement when the conversation was interrupted.
Here. Go inside, Catherine.
What is it, Stewart?
Well, sir, did our little war awaken you?
I wasn't asleep. You said you had a weapon for me?
Yeah. Go inside, Catherine.
All right. Please be careful.
Right over here, Mr. Dollar. Not a gun of American manufacture. Are you familiar with the Thompson product?
Yeah, thanks.
You'll have to arm it. The chamber's empty. Now then, you're going out there with me?
That's what you wanted, wasn't it?
Very good. Rather an odd way to carry on an insurance investigation, isn't it?
That's right. But you'd hardly call this an ordinary case.
We'll return you to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. There have been some changes made, and it's faster, it's funnier, it's got new life and brand new punch because Jan Murray's taken over. What show is this? Why, CBS's Saturday night musical quiz, Sing It Again. That hour of melody, mirth, and money that's heard on most of these same CBS stations. Yes, Jan Murray is your new host. Alan Dale, Judy Lynn, the Riddlers, and Ray Block are your music makers. And there's still loads and loads of cash for identifying the phantom voice. Be sure to hear the new Sing It Again starring Jan Murray tonight on CBS. Now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Converge your fire! Converge! Blast to keep that lane covered! We've other guns to look about for targets. There's a movement to the left, Stewart. Good man, 2 of them. Take them if you like. There's 100 of them. The main force all right. Swing your fire! Huber! Concentrate on their rear. You two, Dollar. Straighten them out! We'll be in the enfilade position. Grenades! Grenades! Now!
Thanks, man.
Well, good morning, Mr. Dollar. Bandits gave you a bit of a go last night, I'm
It
told.
was over by 2 a.m. I'm sorry I got your men into it, Constable.
Oh, nonsense. They're policemen. You brought them both back, didn't you?
Yes, the one death we had was a boy from the estate.
Ah, beastly business. What about the bandits?
I don't know. I didn't stay to count. There's been a development in the French disappearance that will probably surprise you.
Oh?
I overheard a private conversation between Stewart and Mrs. French. Or at least they thought it was private. I can think only one thing after hearing what they said. They're back of French's disappearance, not the bandits.
Oh, see here now.
I told you it'd be a surprise, but it's the truth.
You suspect that there's something between them?
It's more than a suspicion. I know that to be a fact.
Good Lord.
They talked about whether or not French knew about their association and whether or not he'd mentioned it to somebody who could have told me about it. She's afraid I'm suspicious of them, she said. What else could they have been talking about, Constable?
I don't know. Good Lord. Did it sound as though they'd killed him?
Yes, it did. But unfortunately, an overheard conversation isn't much in the way of proof.
No. Pity the body hasn't been found.
That would help. He didn't say so, but I sort of assumed that Stewart has a wife. Is that right?
Yes, he has. Rather a pathetic, sickly woman.
You can't say that about Mrs. French.
Oh, no. I suppose one couldn't.
I wonder if you could call Stewart into town for something this afternoon. Maybe a report on last night's action. I'd like to talk to his wife.
Why, yes, I imagine I could. I'll ask 2 or 3 of the planters. As a matter of fact, I should arrange a meeting to discuss common defense. But good Lord, Dollar, this possibility is astounding.
It was almost too hot to move when Constable Downs opened his meeting, but I jeeped to the Stewart estate and was admitted to the room where Mrs. Stewart was resting, a pale, fever-ridden woman.
Mr. Dollar, you've traveled a great distance in order to ask questions. I find rather strange your hesitancy now that you are here.
There are some questions that are particularly hard to ask. About your husband, Mrs. Stewart.
Yes?
Do you know about your husband and Mrs. French?
Of course I've known. He's in love with her. And I don't care.
Has he spoken of divorce?
Under British law, Mr. Dollar, it would be my place to speak of divorce. Why do you ask?
I wondered if he or they had any plans for the future.
I assure you that any of Keith's plans for the future will include me. Unless he kills me. At times I wish he would.
Do you think Edward French knew about his wife?
I don't know.
Mrs. Stewart, I don't know if you really think your husband is capable of killing you. But it looks very much as though he did kill Edward French.
I hope he did. And I hope he's punished for it.
Can you think of anything that might help me prove that he did?
No. Oh, I wish I could remember.
French disappeared about a month ago. Evidently, he left Singapore in his car. If your husband killed him, he would have to have met him on the road back. Can you remember your husband leaving for any length of time about a month ago?
Yes. Yes, I do remember. A month ago. He left before noon in his lorry. He was gone for 2 or 3 hours.
Did he say where he'd gone?
No. I asked him, and he said he'd been inspecting the groves. But he was lying.
It was hard to know whether she was speaking the truth or what was manufactured by her hate for her husband. When I left her, I went back to the French estate. Mrs. French was reportedly too ill from the previous night's excitement to see me at the moment, and I was told to wait. I waited until an hour before dark and then was faced not by the lady of the estate, but by Keith Stewart.
My wife told me about your visit, Mr. Dollar.
She did? I was hoping that she wouldn't.
I'm sorry that you bothered her. She's quite ill. At times, what she says has entirely no basis of reason.
Oh? She seemed to be all right when I saw her.
She told you that I killed Edward French. Do you think that's a reasonable statement?
She didn't tell me that.
And why should she say that she did?
Probably because I told her.
You told her?
Yeah.
Why would you think a thing like that, Mr. Dollar?
Because it doesn't look like natives' work, for one thing. The body hidden, the car missing.
That doesn't necessarily follow, Mr. Dollar. A jungle animal might have made off with his body. An armored auto such as his could be sold quite easily for a great deal of money.
His body might also offer proof of who killed him. The car, too, possibly.
I'm afraid you're in error, Mr. Dollar. Edward was killed by bandits.
How do you know that?
Considering the number of deaths attributable to them, I think it's safe to assume.
You're in love with his wife.
I make no secret of that, sir.
You made no secret of your conversation with her last night, either.
What do you mean?
I mean on the veranda last night, just before the attack.
I see.
You told her there was nothing to worry about, if you'll remember. But you were wrong.
I'm afraid you were, too, Mr. Dollar. Spying is not looked upon with any amount of favor here.
It's not my usual method, but your stupidity made it almost unavoidable. How do you think the murder is going to be received?
I insist there was no murder per se. Edward was killed by the bandits.
Keith.
Catherine, will you go back to your room, please?
No, Keith. I have a right to know what's being said.
Nothing is being said, my dear, that would be of any interest to you.
Why do you say that, Stewart?
I've been listening, Keith. I have a right to be here.
All right, my dear. As you know, then, we were discussing the possibility that I might have killed your husband. It's a groundless discussion, since even if Mr. Dollar were convinced that I had, there would be the matter of proof.
I've been expecting that.
And you have a solution?
Not at the moment. But let me tell you this. I have Constable Downs convinced, too. He arranged the meeting of you planters this afternoon only to give me time to talk to your wife.
Keith.
Please, Catherine, be quiet.
The constable has probably radioed our suspicions to Singapore by now, so you can see that the ball is rolling, so to speak.
Catherine, be quiet. Go to your room, Catherine. It'll be better if you'll go to your room.
You can see she's ready to break down right now. I don't think you have a chance, Stewart.
She had nothing to do with it, Dollar. I'll accept full responsibility. We did fall in love. Edward was a beast.
That has nothing to do with it, has it?
If you'd known him, you'd realize that it had a great deal to do with it. He deserved to die. Life is cheap here in the Malay States. Good men have been dying. He wasn't a good man. He was a beast. And I took the emergency and used it to my advantage. To Catherine's advantage.
You met him when he came back from Singapore?
Yes, I drove my lorry to meet him. I feigned engine trouble, and when he got out, I shot him and drove away. But I didn't tell Catherine until after I'd done it.
Do you want to go into town to give your story to Constable Downs, or shall I send in for him?
I'll go in. If you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it if I could go to my estate first.
It's close to dark.
I'd appreciate it.
We'll go in the Jeep then. I've got 2 armed men in there.
All right, Mr. Dollar. I won't say goodbye to Catherine. If we could leave now.
Oh, you're carrying an automatic. I'd better take that. All right, we can go now. It was too close to dark when we swung into the last mile of his estate. The jungle seemed to press in closer than ever. The orange sun had sunk below the trees by the time we reached the house. The guard was set, and I wondered if I had spent another night with a Thompson in my hand. We walked into the house, and there faced a man I didn't recognize until Stewart screamed his name.
French! French, but how?
An emaciated Edward French, a scarecrow, half alive, and holding a pistol in his hand.
French? Edward?
Yes, Keith.
No, Edward, no!
You are Edward French?
Yes, I'm Edward French. I'm still alive. I stayed alive so I could come back and face the man who thought he'd killed me. How is Catherine?
Edward.
Is she happy thinking I'm dead? She should have known that I wouldn't die. I didn't die, Keith.
Keith was going in to give himself up, French.
You won't have to now.
Now, wait a minute. Let things go the way they're going.
I know how things are going. I don't know you, but don't try to stop me.
Edward. Look, Edward, there's nothing I can say. Nothing I can say, but Edward, there must be something.
Give me that thing, French.
Sure. There it is. Well, I've shown him a thing or two around here.
Yeah? You sure have. Expense account item 4, same as items 1 and 3, transportation back to the States in Hartford. Item 5, miscellaneous, $200. Expense account total, $2,739.50. Remarks? The story of French being left for dead and driving to a settlement hospital is too long to cover here. But he did, without letting anybody know who he was. The last I saw of him, he was being booked for murder himself. I had no idea that a cup of tea might have all this background. But I was there. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dodd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Jeanette Nolan, John McIntyre, Tudor Owen, Maria Palmer, and Dan O'Herlihy. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Coverly, inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
For more adventure and mystery tonight, CBS brings you Hopalong Cassidy, Gangbusters, and Broadway is My Beat on most of these same CBS stations. Stay tuned now for Larry LeSueur with 5 minutes of the latest news, which follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Mickey McQueen, Johnny. How are you?
Mickey? I tried to phone you a couple of times, but I never reached you.
Well, I'm out a lot these days.
Well, I heard about your promotion to sergeant, Mickey. Nice going.
That isn't good. They're taking my beat away from me and putting me behind the desk. I've got to talk to a friend about it. Will you be home tonight?
Well, you really sound worried, Mickey. What is it?
Nothing yet, Johnny, but there'll be murder before it's finished. My mind's made up. I want to talk to you about it.
Sure, Mickey. I'll be here any time you want to come up.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, to whom it may concern, Hartford Police Headquarters, Hartford, Connecticut. I don't expect you to honor this statement, but since the reports to my regular employers go in on these forms, the following is an accounting of my expenditures during my personal investigation of the Mickey McQueen matter. You may wonder how I got mixed up in it. Well, it's been my privilege to have worked a number of cases with Mickey McQueen here in Hartford. And through the years, a friendship developed between us. So when he phoned Tuesday night to say he wanted to talk to me, I was glad to ask him up. But when it got to be 1:30 in the morning and he still hadn't arrived, I wasn't so glad. He arrived at 2.
I'm sorry I'm late, Johnny.
Yeah, what held you up? I was about to drop off.
I had to think, Johnny.
Oh. You're in uniform, Mickey. What about your beat?
Yeah, my beat won't miss me. After 20 years of walking it from dark till dawn, checking its doors and passing the time of night with its people, drunk and sober.
Is it too late for a drink, Mickey? I got your brand, some Irish.
Yes, that was good of you. I've been a good policeman, Johnny. I can say that without sounding like I'm stuck on myself, can't I now?
Oh, I've never heard anybody else say anything else, Mickey.
And I've got more friends to my credit than I have arrests. I'll say that. But I've got a quiet beat.
I think there are quieter beats in town. Maybe you're lucky. Here's to it.
All right. But be careful what it is. There's murder being done and planned right this minute, Johnny, and them that could stop it don't have the heart, right or wrong.
What are you talking about?
I know what I'm talking about.
Are you feeling all right?
Feeling all right? I'm as healthy as I was yesterday, ain't I now?
I didn't see you yesterday.
Yet they're taking my job, putting me behind a desk. A degrading end for a man that's been active for 20 years.
After 20 years on your feet, you should take a rest. You've earned one.
The very words of the commission, Johnny. But, Johnny,
Yeah, Mickey?
Never mind. The devil take them all. I've used up enough of your time.
Now, wait a minute. You came over to talk about something more than your new job. What's this stuff about murder being planned and being done?
I shouldn't have said it. I wish you'd forget it.
What's the matter with you? You know me well enough to tell me. You know me well enough to know I'll keep any confidence you want me to keep.
You're a good friend, Johnny. Maybe that's why I've changed my mind about telling you.
Then why did you come over?
Because I thought I was going to talk to you, but I'm not now.
All right, it's your business. But you're acting like a kid. Now, if you don't have anything to say to me, it's after 2. I have a job in the morning.
All right, Johnny.
I'm sorry I bothered you. I'll say good night.
I didn't sleep very well for the rest of the night. In sort of a half doze, parts of Mickey's conversation kept coming back to me. And the more sleep I lost over it, the more I wished I had been less grumpy and more sympathetic. There wasn't a job for me the next day, and right after noon I decided to drop by his apartment and find out his mood when he was off duty. Mickey's apartment occupied the ground floor of a narrow gray row house not far from mine. I could hear a woman crying somewhere inside. I smelled domestic trouble, but I pushed the buzzer anyway.
Are you the...
I'm Johnny Dollar, a friend of Mr. McQueen's.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Dollar. He said to phone you if I ever needed.
Is he home?
In there.
She pointed in the direction of a door smaller than the outside door, the door to either a bathroom or a closet. It was a closet. The clothes were bunched at one end of the rod, and from the other, still in uniform, his own polished leather belt drawn tightly around his neck, hung Mickey McQueen. I walked back into the lace-curtained living room. The woman who had let me in was in her middle 30s. She wore too much makeup, and her white blonde hair was anything but natural. She had stopped crying, and she acted as if she were waiting for me to start something.
Well, what about it? Do you explain yourself, or do I get 3 guesses? Never mind that look. I only live here.
Oh? I didn't know Mickey had a wife.
Oh, maybe he was ashamed of me. My name is Thelma.
Sorry, Thelma.
You're an old friend of Mickey's?
Yeah, but he never told me about you.
Had you seen him lately?
Yeah, last night. First he phoned me, then he came by to talk to me.
What did he say?
I'm not sure. He was pretty handy with double talk. Maybe I was supposed to understand it, but I didn't.
What was it about?
About his job, change he was making, and something about murders being planned and done, and nobody doing anything to stop them.
Then he didn't tell you
What?
that I was leaving him.
He's never mentioned you. Why were you leaving him?
Well, because it was all wrong. I never should have married him in the first place.
Why did you?
Because he was the kindest, most wonderful man that ever lived. Does that answer your question?
Not quite. Is there more?
Did you know his first wife?
Yeah.
Well, then I guess you know he took her death pretty hard. They'd been married 10 years. I met him after she died. He was lonely, and so was I. Well, he was pretty wonderful to me. I thought I could help him. It wasn't because of him I was leaving. It was me. But I never thought he'd do this.
I don't think he did.
What do you mean?
I think he was murdered.
Why?
When did you find him?
Oh, I came home about a half hour before you got here.
Have you phoned the police?
Not yet. I didn't know what to do.
Where'd you been?
I told you I was leaving him. I've been living in a hotel. Does it matter?
Well, why'd you come back?
Oh, just to get some things I'd left. Why are you asking me these things?
When it's murder, there's bound to be a lot of questions.
I don't think it was. Everybody loved him. He didn't have an enemy in the world. Why would anybody want to kill a man like Mickey McQueen?
For the rest of the day, I tried to talk myself into leaving the matter in the hands of the police where it belonged, but I couldn't do it. That night, I started making the rounds of Mickey's beat. I talked to a corner magazine vendor who had sold him a mystery, a woman in a cigar store who had talked with him, and a cabbie who had borrowed $5 from him. None of them gave me anything helpful. My next stop was the Cedric Hotel, where I looked up the house detective, Ned Martin.
Oh, poor old Mickey. I'll miss him.
So will I. Did you see him last night?
Yeah, he dropped in. He always did, once or twice a night, just to shoot the breeze, you know. Why'd he do it? Did he leave a note or anything?
I think he was murdered.
What makes you say that?
Came over to see me about 2:30 this morning. There was something on his mind. He wanted to talk about it, but he wouldn't.
Yeah, that figures.
What do you mean?
I noticed something about him last night. He was real low. I asked him what was the matter. He said it was because it was his last night on his beat. He was supposed to check into his new job today. But that didn't sound right to me.
Did you know he had a wife?
Yeah, I heard about it. Then I hounded him till he showed me a picture of her.
Bleached blonde?
Yeah, she looks it. I didn't want to embarrass him by asking, but I wondered about her. What makes you think it was murder, Dollar?
Now, do you think Mickey was the type to kill himself?
Well, no, but how can you tell?
I guess you can't. All you can do is try to find out. Well, if you don't have anything more, I'll be on my way.
Wait a minute.
Huh?
I guess it was a dirty trick, and I wish I hadn't done it, but I snooped that marriage. I found out who she was. Her name was Thelma Weaver. She did a couple of years at Joliet.
Where'd you get that?
Things like that don't stay hidden. I'd drop it if I were you. I really would.
What are you holding out on me?
It's for your own good, Johnny.
I'll shake it out of you if I have to.
Okay, hero. You know Fred Koo, the Calcutta Club over in Bartlett?
I know of him. He's a police informer, isn't he?
Part-time.
Uh-huh.
If you won't take my advice and forget it, go talk to him. And don't tell him who sent you.
What do you want?
I want to talk to you about Mickey McQueen. Do you have an office?
You're a cop, too?
Only a private one. I was a friend of Mickey's.
Oh, sure. Roy. Yes? I'm in my office for a little while. If there's any trouble, buzz me.
Roger, Fred.
Come on, this way.
Got quite a crowd tonight, Fred.
Sure, sometimes I get a lot of out-of-town trade.
Did you see Mickey last night?
No, I didn't. I get along fine with Mickey. He won't take any payoff, but he don't push me around. How is he?
Do you know his wife?
His wife? I didn't even know he was married.
Her name was Thelma Weaver before Mickey married her. She did some time in Joliet.
Why do you bother me with this? I got work to do.
You knew Mickey was dead.
No, I didn't know that.
I don't see how it would be enough, but it struck me that if somebody knew he was married to an ex-con, they might try to use the information.
I suppose you're right. Yeah?
Right, Fred. I think you'd better come out.
Important?
Yes, I think so.
Be right out. Pardon me, Dollar. A little trouble outside. Wait here. I'll come right back.
I waited, and while I did, I took a quick look around the office for another way out in case I might need it. There wasn't any unless the steel door in one of the walls was it. But before I could try it, the other door opened. I wasn't expecting Fred Koo to return so quickly, and neither was I expecting who did come in.
I didn't expect to find you here, Mr. Dollar.
Likewise, Mrs. McQueen.
I was looking for Mr. Koo.
What for?
Well, I thought I might help if I could. Mickey kept this notebook, you see, where he wrote down all the places he stopped when he made his rounds. This place was one of them. I thought if I could talk to this Mr. Koo.
Did you know Fred Koo?
Oh, I know.
You know anybody named Weaver, Thelma Weaver?
All right, mister. That's enough. Reach.
Don't be crazy. What good would that do?
Stay where you are. Don't try anything. I really mean it.
She looked like she really meant it. It was a small revolver, Colt 25. I didn't know whether she had come in meaning to use it on Fred Koo or me, but it didn't make much difference at the moment. She had it pointed at my midsection. I couldn't figure her. She held her little revolver as if she was used to the feel of it. But there had been something actressy about the way she said reach. I couldn't figure her, but I decided not to take a chance. I grabbed up the inkwell from the desk and threw not it, but the contents at her.
Hey, what's it?
Okay, drop it. Drop it. Drop it. Now sit down.
All right. What do you want?
That depends on what you want.
I told you. I want to find out who killed Mickey.
At the apartment earlier today, you didn't think anybody had. What about it?
All right, Johnny. How much do you know?
That your name was Thelma Weaver, that you spent 2 years in Joliet.
That's right. And after 2 years in that place, I didn't want to go back to the life and start all over again. I gave the bunch in Chicago the slip and came here. I was hanging around trying to pick up enough to pay my way to Florida or someplace, and that's how I met Mickey. He arrested me. Vagrancy. What a laugh. He showed in court the next morning and got me released in his custody. Oh, he treated me like a daughter. He loaned me some money, offered to get me a job, and I really felt for the first time like I could start life all over again. Oh, I know it sounds corny, but...
But good. You make it sound real good.
You don't believe me, do you?
Sure. I believe you as far as you've gone. I even believe the part about starting a new life. You saw that Mickey had a heart as big as the city, and you didn't lose any time moving into it. That was smart. It was about the safest hiding place you could have found. For you, but not for Mickey.
How did I know about Fred Koo? Somebody spotted me and told him. And he didn't waste any time getting in touch with Chicago.
Those men out there, they all from Chicago?
Well, most of them. Did you spot the tall one? He talks with an English accent.
Yeah, I remember him. Roy?
That's him. He came first. He checked the possibilities on Mickey's beat, and then he found out about Mickey being moved over to a new job.
Where was he being moved?
Some desk job.
Where?
At the police arsenal.
The arsenal. How did Roy find that out?
I told him. I had to. He made me tell him.
What are Roy's plans, do you know?
Yeah, the Marquardt building. The one that has all the wholesale jewelers.
No, that's no good. Mickey was supposed to help them with a job of that size, or they'd reveal that he was married to an ex-con. That's not enough. They must have more than that on you or him.
Oh, I might as well tell you. Can't hurt me now any more than I've been hurt. His name is Roy Weaver. I'm married to him. He threatened to bring bigamy charges unless Mickey helped him.
That would do it. With your record, bigamy would be a long stretch.
Yeah, 5 years. Mickey would do almost anything rather than cause me that.
Who killed him?
Roy did. I wasn't there. I swear I wasn't. But they met him after he got through work at 5:30 this morning.
Why did they kill him?
Mickey was all ready for his new job, and he had the keys to the arsenal.
Here's your gun. If you're on the level, you may need it, and the caliber's too small to do me any good.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to the police.
Why not use the phone?
It'll be tapped, and it would take too long to explain it. That bunch would be in here before I got started.
I wouldn't try it if I were you.
Where are you going, Dollar? I'm going home. I was waiting for Fred Koo, but I guess he decided not to bother.
Fred had to leave. Did Mrs. Weaver entertain you with her sordid story?
Yeah, it was very pleasant.
She's a charming girl. You were going home to think about it.
Well, if you don't mind, get out of my way.
Carl, Benson. I'm afraid I do mind. I couldn't chance having Fred interrupted at the arsenal.
Get out of my way! Hey, where you gone? Come on! That's enough!
Ah, that's fine, Carl. Now, shall we go back to the office and wait? Bring him along, Carl. It's a pity you became involved in this Dollar. I'd hoped there wouldn't have to be any more violence.
You did stop him.
Yes. Thanks for the buzz, darling.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Look what the skunk did to my dress. Did Fred get started all right?
He's well on his way. Should be back within the hour.
Hey, Mr. Weaver, what do we do with this guy?
Oh, keep him out of the way. Put him in there. And see that he stays quiet.
Sure. Hey, you. Turn around.
At least I found out what was behind the steel door I'd noticed earlier in the evening. When my eyes opened and I got accustomed to the light from a single dust-covered bulb, I realized that I was in a sort of wine cellar. There were some bottles, but most of the storage space was taken up by a large and varied assortment of burglar's tools. There were a few weapons, too, but I knew they were nothing compared to what Fred would bring back if the raid on the arsenal was successful. I glanced at my watch at 11:15, and right after that, I heard the heavy latch on the door being turned. I got back into my position on the floor, closed my eyes, and listened.
Don't forget the bars, Carl. We'll need them for the inside doors.
I got you. Hey, Benson, you take these. I'll bring the rest. You want the guns in there, Mr. Weaver?
We won't need them. Crocker.
Yeah?
Listen closely now. We're behind schedule. Both cars are in back. In the Buick, you'll find the things from the arsenal.
Yeah.
I want you to move half of them over into the Cadillac.
What about the grenades, Roy?
They're in a case marked CN-DM, irritant gas M6.
I got it.
Open the case and put half in the Buick. The most important is the cordite powder for the vaults. There are 2 boxes. Put one in the trunk of each car.
Right.
Be careful. It's very touchy stuff.
Yeah, I know. I've handled it before.
All right, get along then, and hurry.
It won't take long.
Now, Fred will be in charge of one car. I'll be in the other.
It's all right.
We're agreed that we'll meet at the north entrance at midnight, both to approach the building from the east on Lincoln. You will have dropped 2 men to guard the south entrance. 2 of my men will subdue the guard at the north.
Yeah, they better. They'll spring the alarm in a big hurry.
You can trust me. They'll use Thompson's. Thelma,
Yes, Roy?
where are you going?
Well, don't be so snoopy. I'm going to powder my nose.
You're coming with us.
Sure, Roy, if you want me to.
I don't need you, but I don't think I should feel safe without you with me. Don't be long.
I'll be right back.
Think everything is ready from in here, Mr. Weaver.
Good. Go to the cars then, Carl.
What about the Seamus there?
Oh, lock him up again. We'll decide what to do when we come back.
I guess he can't cause no harm in there.
I tried to force the door that time using one of the bars they had left behind, but I couldn't do anything with it. Then I started poking the cement walls. I knew better than to expect to find any other exit, but with the biggest burglary in the history of Hartford underway, I had to do something. I kept a check on the time, and it was 20 minutes before they were due to arrive at the Marquardt building when a sound stopped me. The steel door was being opened. I moved behind it, still holding my bar.
Dollar, it's Ned Martin. You in here?
Yeah, Martin. I'm here. How did you know I was here?
Some dame phoned the hotel. She told me you were here.
Why should she call you?
How should I know? I don't even know who it was. She just said she knew you came to the hotel and that you were locked up in here. I mentioned the Calcutta to you, so I came over to see what it was all about. Now, what's the matter? Don't you believe me?
I don't know what to believe. You said you were holding something out on me when I talked to you.
I was. I knew Fred Koo was selling the information about Mickey's wife to some guns from Chicago. I knew it could have led to trouble.
Why didn't you tell me? You said it was for my own good.
I thought it was, and mine too. I didn't want you to know so much you'd have to tell where you learned it, to prove how smart you were. I don't like this kind of stuff.
You got a car?
Yeah, but it stays right where it's parked till you tell me what's going on.
This Chicago bunch raided the police arsenal. They're armed with everything from cordite to Tommy guns. They're going into the Marquardt building in less than 20 minutes.
What's that?
Wholesale jewelers. Would you take me out there?
I'll take you part way if you're crazy enough to want to go.
That's good enough. Let's get into the office. It's dead.
Who'd you want, police?
Yeah.
We could stop on the way.
It'll take us 15 minutes to get to the Marquardt building. If we run into a patrol car on the way, we'll stop it. If we don't, you can drop me and then phone in. Where's your car? At the speed we traveled, we should have at least picked up a traffic cop, but we didn't. Martin wouldn't take me any closer than the corner of Atlantic and Milton. And we reached there at 12 minutes after 12. That gave me 2 minutes to get to the Marquardt building. I didn't make it before they arrived, but it didn't make any difference. Both cars had pulled up and were unloading men. From a doorway about 50 yards down, I spotted Fred Koo and Roy Weaver. Then I saw Thelma. She got out of the Buick and started toward me.
Thelma, where are you going?
Weaver shouted at her, but she didn't answer. Instead, she stopped, and I saw the little gun glitter in her hand as she turned back to them. Then I saw what she was aiming at. The trunk of the Buick, where the cordite powder was.
Thelma! Thelma! Stop it!
The car went up in a blast of powder and gasoline, and she moved back toward the other one. That was it. Thelma Weaver McQueen, as the department knows, was DOA at Emergency Hospital. None of the mob got out alive except Roy Weaver, who lived long enough to sign a confession to Mickey McQueen's murder. I want you to know that I may have lost a good friend, but you have lost a better policeman. I hope to see those early news accounts that called him a suicide corrected. Expense account total, no dollars and no cents. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Bill Conrad, Martha Wentworth, Herb Butterfield, Jack Moyles, and Ray Hartman. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
There'll be fast-moving, true police adventure on CBS tonight when Gangbusters comes your way again on most of these same stations. This evening, Gangbusters presents The Case of the Stranger in the Hall. Stay tuned now for 5 minutes of the latest news. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
It's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Lou Krieger, Mr. Dollar.
Yeah, Lou, what's up?
They found the boat a few miles off the Atlantic side of St. Croix.
Oh?
She was empty.
Neither one of them aboard?
No. From what I understand, it looks like there was trouble, all right.
How's that?
Blood stains. I guess signs of a struggle. The engine had run until it was out of gas.
They're sure it's the boat, huh? Yeah, they must be.
Oh, they're sure. It's registered to Willard South.
Yeah, all right. Where can I see it?
Well, they won't have it in for another 30 minutes. The police dock is next to Royal Mail. You can't miss it. I'll meet you there if you want.
Good, Lou. I'll see you in about 20 minutes.
Edmund O'Brien and a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Great Eastern Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Willard South Matter. Expense account item 1, $143.80, airfare and incidentals between Hartford and the city of Charlotte Amalie, island of St. Thomas, Virgin Island Group. I arrived there 2 days after the disappearance of your policyholders, Willard South and his wife, Georgina, and 1 day after the report had been made by his foster mother. She was too upset to be questioned, but I did find a local guide and boat owner who claimed to know the boating habits of Willard South through a number of fishing trips. I made arrangements with him to start my own search the next morning, but it was this guide, Lou Krieger, who phoned that second evening to tell me that South's cruiser had been found, empty.
Oh, Dollar, over here.
Yeah, Lou.
I didn't know if you'd spotted me or not.
I hadn't. You could do better on light down here.
Oh, that is part of the romance of the island.
This is the boat, huh?
Police officer still aboard. A native by the name of Shoy. I told him you were coming. We can go aboard now. In the cabin. Officer Shoy?
Yes?
Mr. Dollar is here.
Oh, come inside then.
Thanks for letting me aboard, officer.
Glad to meet you, Mr. Dollar. I was sent to your University of Iowa to learn to be a policeman.
It's a good school.
I learned what they taught me, but I've had no chance to learn if what they taught me is right. It is our boast that there is no crime in the Virgin Islands. That has been right. But now this...
Well, it happens in the best of circles sooner or later. What do you make of it?
Well, let me show you with my light. Near the wheel, see?
The bullet still in the wood?
Yes. I will take out the piece of the panel with a saw and take the bullet from that.
This blood stain under the wheel. Are there more like it?
This is the large one.
As if somebody fell there.
As if somebody fell there. There are more here and more in the passageway. Then on the deck. There on the rail, as if somebody climbed over the side or was pushed over.
Yeah.
There's one other thing back here. This piece of line. Look.
Huh. It's been cut.
Mr. Krager says a small boat was usually tied to the stern.
You sure of that, Lou?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Willard always trailed a dinghy. You know, like a skiff, unless he was trolling. Then he hoisted it aboard.
But where is it now?
You're searching for it, aren't you?
Yes. So is the Coast Guard boat.
I wish you luck. A little skiff will be a lot harder to find than a cruiser like this. Well, I'll be anxious to learn of any developments, Officer Shoy. I'm staying at the Grand. Nothing had developed by noon the next day. I spent the morning on routine legwork, and at 12:30, I was back at the Willard South address. It was an old building with enough elevation to give its windows a view of Charlotte Amelie's pleasant harbor. I'd known Willard South's foster mother lived there, but I hadn't known about the man who met me at the door.
I'm Willard's brother. I was told you'd called yesterday. Mr. Dollar, come in.
Your mother was too upset to talk with me yesterday. You've gotten the news on what they found, I suppose.
Yes, I went down to see the boat. Has anything further been learned?
No, not yet.
Sit down, Mr. Dollar. It's cooler here on the veranda.
Thank you.
I wasn't here yesterday because I was searching for Willard's boat, too.
I'm surprised to learn Willard has a brother. I've asked a lot of questions about him in the village. Nobody mentioned you.
Well, I'm only here a few days a year. My home is in Tampa. I arrived the first of the week, Tuesday.
I'm glad I met you before I had to see your mother. It's a lot easier to be blunt with a brother.
Blunt, Mr. Dollar?
About Willard's reputation on the island. I can't seem to find anybody who doesn't hate him.
I'm afraid you won't either.
Do you know anyone who hated him enough to shoot him?
Well, I hardly know how to answer that. I know a number of men have been hurt seriously by him.
The ones that have lost wives?
Yes. Do you think he's dead?
I don't know. The only thing I'm sure of is that there was a shooting on his boat and somebody was hurt. I'm told your brother and his wife were seen leaving on it at dusk, night before last. Is that right?
Yes. They'd packed an evening meal.
Meal had never been eaten. Were little trips like this a regular habit of theirs?
No, they weren't at all. It was a special occasion. Georgina has never stopped hoping she could reform Willard and win him back. This trip was one more of her efforts.
Did they say where they were going?
No, but I thought it would be Culebra. That's an island about 20 miles from here in a westerly direction. Mother said they started that way, but the boat was found almost 40 miles in the other direction.
It's a matter of 60 miles.
Yes, 60 miles. Mr. Dollar, what could have happened in those 60 miles?
I don't know yet, but I hope to find out. You knew about the skiff being cut loose.
Yes, they told me, but...
Paul, dear.
Yes, Mother.
Who's with you? Is there any news?
Nothing yet. Mother, this is Mr. Dollar from the insurance company.
How do you do, Mr. Dollar?
Mrs. South, I'm sorry I have to meet you at a time like this.
A great many crises in the past 10 years have revolved around my son, Willard. I've conditioned myself to expect them. Even his death by violence, if that should be.
Mother, please.
But if harm has come to Georgina...
There's no evidence of that, Mrs. South.
Well, if it does, I shall hold myself responsible.
Mother.
Because I allowed her to become the wife of the beast I have called my son.
It was a rare situation. There was no actual evidence that Willard South had been murdered, but almost everyone I talked to seemed to think he had been, simply because there were so many motives. One of the people who didn't think so was a newcomer to the island, Celeste Robertson, there to take advantage of the 6 weeks divorce law.
Who told you about me?
A bartender up the street. He said you and South had been seen together recently.
Yes, I know him. As a matter of fact, I've spent quite a bit of time with him in the last couple of weeks.
Where do you think he is?
But I don't know.
Do you think he's dead?
No. No, I don't.
Most people do.
Well, I can't help that. I know a lot of people don't like him.
Would there be anyone close to you that doesn't like him?
No, there wouldn't. I'm here alone.
When did you see him last?
The afternoon before he and his wife disappeared in their boat?
You answered that almost as if you knew you'd be asked the question.
Well, I didn't. I just remembered it was only a couple of days ago.
But you wouldn't remember his mentioning anybody who might be out after his scalp, huh? I understand he enjoys that sort of thing.
He never mentioned anybody.
What are you holding back, Mrs. Robertson?
Nothing. I don't have anything to hold back.
Did he ever say anything to you about getting rid of his wife?
I don't know what you mean.
Look, all we have to work with is a bullet hole in the boat and some bloodstains that could have come from her or from him.
He never said anything.
And what are you afraid of?
I'm not. Look, Mr. Dollar, please, I don't want to get my name mixed up in this if I can help it. I'm here sort of on good behavior. I know I was wrong to see him because he was married, but
But what?
just because I did see him, I don't think I have to get mixed up in things like shooting. Something I don't know about at all.
I guess you can't be blamed for that. You don't have to get mixed up in it. Unless you already are. All that day, planes searched the sea for the missing skiff. Boats, too, swept back and forth between the islands. It wouldn't seem possible that anything they missed would ever be found. But it was. That evening, after the planes had given up in order to get back to their fields before dark, a radio report was received from one of the boats. The skiff had been found, and in it, still alive, was Mrs. Willard South. I was with Officer Shoy when the boat was docked under the steady hand of a leathery old skipper with the help of one crewman.
Forward there. Get some fenders over, Gerald. What's the matter with you? All right. Take a strain now.
We can go aboard now, Mr. Dollar.
All right.
Hello, Captain Bracken.
Hello yourself, Officer Shoy.
Your luck is good.
Ain't used these eyes for 72 years for nothing, Officer Shoy.
How's Mrs. South? Can she talk to us?
She cannot. She's been put through a hard time. She gets turned over to Dr. Garr before she talks to anybody else.
What about her husband? Did she say what happened?
Yes, she did. She seen him shot down before her very eyes. And his dead body heaved to the sharks. And then somebody go fetch Dr. Garr. She needs some work, else she'll die.
We'll return you to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Have you heard the new Sing It Again? The new comedy of Jan Murray, your host, on that coast-to-coast phone? The new cash prizes for cracking the mystery of Sing It Again's phantom voice? The new speed and color of the tuneful little riddle songs that make Sing It Again a Saturday night must for radio listening? You'll like the new Sing It Again. Be listening for it tonight on most of these same CBS stations. Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
It wasn't until the next morning that Dr. Garr decided Mrs. South was strong enough to be questioned. He'd taken her to the single small hospital in Charlotte Amalie, and at 10, he beckoned from the door to her room.
I think it'll be all right, but please don't tire her.
Mr. Dollar.
Yeah?
I want you to question her. I never learned about a case like this one.
I never did either. Anything you say. All right, Doctor.
Georgina, this is Officer Shoy, and this is Mr. Dollar.
Yes?
Mr. Dollar is here to ask you some questions, but I don't want you to let him tire you.
I'll try not to, Mrs. Allen.
Why are you here?
I was sent down from the States when you and your husband disappeared by your insurance company.
I see.
Now, I know it's pretty horrible to go back over it, but we've got to find out just what happened on that boat. The quicker we do it, the quicker we can get to the bottom of it.
I'll try to help.
Captain Bracken told us just the bad details.
He's the boat captain who found you. Remember, I mentioned his name.
Yes.
He told us you saw somebody shoot your husband. Who was it?
I don't know. There were two men. I've never seen them before.
How did they get aboard, Mrs. South?
We were on our way to Cleaver. Almost halfway, I think. It was dark, and we saw a light blinking from another boat. Will said it was a signal that somebody was in trouble, and we went over. This man said they'd run out of fuel and asked if we had any to spare. But when Will pulled alongside, this man jumped on our boat with a gun. Dr.
It's all right, Georgina. Don't go on if you don't want to.
He shot Will. That's all. He shot him, and then the other man jumped aboard, too.
What did they say?
They didn't say anything.
You think your husband knew them?
No, he didn't know them.
What did they do then?
Well, one of them hit me because I was screaming. I was wearing a bracelet, and he grabbed it off my wrist and made me take off two rings and give them to him. And they took Will's wallet and they dragged him out, and then they pushed him into the water. And I don't remember anymore. I can't.
It's all right, Georgina. Nobody can hurt you now.
No.
Gentlemen, I think we'd better let her rest now.
Sure, Doctor. I'm sorry we had to bother you, Mrs. South.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Considering what she's been through, I think she did very well.
Actually, her physical condition, except for exhaustion, is quite good. She did have water during the time she was adrift and some shelter from the sun. What do you make of it?
Well, the whole thing seems pretty brutal for simple robbery. Say, where's the nearest prison, Shoy?
Puerto Rico.
Now, that's something that had not occurred to me. Escaped convicts might carry out such a ruthless attack, might they not?
Yeah, even more so.
Well, I will send cables to both of those prisons.
I think you'd better. It was little enough to go on, but it was obviously useless to try to get any more information from Mrs. South then. Dr. Guy had every right to insist that we leave his patient alone. Officer Shoy went to his headquarters to cable his questions, and I went back to the waterfront. The skiff was still on the dock, but before I even got to it, I was hailed.
Hey, you there. Whatever your name is.
How are you, Captain Bracken?
Oh, how's the invalid? Have you heard?
Yeah, I just left her. She'll be okay.
Yeah, lots of spunk, that one. What are your figures behind it?
Well, she wasn't strong enough to tell us much. But Officer Shoy is checking the possibility that those two men she talks about might be escaped convicts.
Say, they might have been.
Well, I can't see anybody like that leaving her alive to talk about it.
Yeah, no matter how low they get, there's them that can't kill a woman, I suppose. What are you doing down here?
I want to take a look at that skiff by daylight. The escaped prisoner theory is too long a chance to rest on. It still may have been a local job.
Oh, I hate to see it turn out that way somehow.
Why do you say that?
Oh, this wants to be a peaceful island. It's the truth. Nobody wasted any affection on Willard. But if it'd been downright fitting if two escaped convicts done that devil in.
I spent 30 minutes looking over the skiff, and another hour going over Willard South's cruiser again. Nothing I dug out of either one added up. Neither did the results of a trip to the cable office. There had been no recent escapes from the prisons. Right from the beginning, for all my prying and all my questions, I hadn't gotten one positive lead. But by this time, there were so many things I couldn't put my finger on that I began to reason, why not make a weapon of just that? So I started again with Lou Krager, the first person I'd met in the investigation. I found him aboard his boat.
Dollar, what's got into you anyway?
I'm sick and tired of the runaround and double talk I've been getting.
I don't get it.
You will. You were quick to make yourself available to me when I showed up here. Why, Krager?
I thought you needed some help. You wanted a boat, I had one.
I think you mean somebody else needed help. That piece of line you pointed out to Officer Shoy and me on South's cruiser, the short piece.
Who cut it?
I don't know. How should I know who cut it?
It's one of the things you better get straight. You said it had been used to tow the skiff. But the line of the skiff had not been cut.
What does that mean?
That you were lying. Now, I'm no sailor. But why cut a line when loosening a couple of half hitches would free the skiff?
But it was cut, wasn't it?
The line you pointed out was cut. And you made your point that Willard South always trailed the skiff. Why? Because you wanted the search for it to go on. Because you knew his wife was alive and would be found in it.
I think the tropics have got you, Dollar.
You don't think I can break this case down, do you? Because half of the non-tourists on the island are willing to lie to cover up for her. I don't care how noble their loyalty is. This case is going to be broken down. Because there's a reason Coast Guard planes can search for 3 days and not find her, but that night after dark, your friend Bracken can. Her story of the other boat and the 2 men. If the South cruiser had been stolen, the other boat would have been found.
How do you know what happened?
I know that a doctor will be here in less than 18 hours who will prove that Georgina South did not spend 3 days adrift.
Dollar, you don't know what you're talking about. Where are you going?
To cable the doctor.
Now, wait a minute. You don't know what you're doing, Dollar.
I was told what to do when I was sent down here.
Leave things as they are, Dollar. Believe me, it's the right thing to do.
Not where I come from.
Well, I can't let you.
Mr. Craig, I order you to stop. Stop, or I have the right to use
You heard him, Krager. You heard him. Take it easy.
Listen to me, Dollar. Sometimes right, the way you find it in the book, isn't right. Remember that I told you.
Dollar.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Mrs. South. I didn't see you in the swing. I wouldn't have barged in.
You startled me. I must have been dozing. There's been so little sleep.
Yes, I know. I went to the hospital first. They told me that Georgina had come home.
Yes, she did.
I'll have to see her, please.
Why must you see her, Mr. Dollar?
I think you know. You know. Willard's brother knows. Captain Bracken and his crewmen know. Luke Krager, Dr. Garr. I'm not sure how many others.
Well, I'm afraid
Please, what's the use? You shouldn't have tried it, no matter how you felt. You should have realized that it wouldn't work. Even way down here in the Virgin Islands, a murderer is hard to protect. Where is she?
Who told you this?
There were too many mistakes. Luke Krager made the biggest one.
You too are making one, Mr. Dollar.
I'm sorry, Mrs. South. Murder is murder.
They speak of heredity and environment. Many say that heredity will never be overcome. Others say that environment will win out. But both are right and both are wrong.
Mrs. South.
My husband and I took our boys from the poorest foundling home we could find. Paul is one of the best. But Willard didn't deserve to live. Mother. He became more bestial every day. He couldn't live any longer.
Mother,
no more secrets, Georgina, my dear. I must tell Mr. Dollar the truth. It's I who've been hiding behind my friends. I'm the murderer. I killed Willard. I had to before he destroyed us all.
Expense account item 2, $85.40. Miscellaneous expenses in Charlotte Amalie. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $373. Remarks? I tabbed the confession as a false one when they heard it. And I'm not charging the company for the time I spent trying to prove it false. But it wasn't. It was true. And so is the awkward fact that a large number of the leading villagers are liable as accessories after the fact of murder. It should develop into quite a trial. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Irene Hubbard as Evangela, Jan Miner as Georgina, Gilbert Mack as Lou, Fran Lafferty as Celeste, Ed Latimer as Sam, Maurice Tarplin as Shoy, and Bernard Lindrow as the Doctor. is Olin Tice inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns in another transcribed adventure of
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Everybody wants to help America's defense program. And part of everybody's duty is to be extremely careful with the handling of fire. This is especially true in wooded territory, where forest fires can cause terrible losses in valuable natural resources, lives, and manpower. 9 out of every 10 of these disastrous fires can be prevented because they're man-made. Don't leave fire prevention to the other fellow. Only you can prevent forest fires. Stay tuned now for 5 minutes of the latest news. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.